I am so excited to begin our 5-part sight reading series today. Sight reading seems to be the number one thing that trips pianists up, especially but not limited to the beginner to intermediate pianist. First of all, what exactly is sight reading? Sight reading is the ability to perform music on the spot without prior practice. So of course, to be a good sight reader, you also need to be a good reader. And this series will help you with both of those skills. If you're wondering why sight reading is so important, I would say the number one motivation to become a skilled sight reader is to be able to play through more music. There's nothing I love more than to be able to pick up a piece of random music that I'm just curious about and play it just for fun. Now let's go over how this series will work. There are 5 lessons that are released consecutively week after week, and each will have a sight reading tip that will go over in depth, and you'll have lots of opportunities to see the value of how it could be useful for you. These tips won't necessarily be in any kind of order of importance. They're all just standalone tips. Then I'll provide 5 different sight reading pieces for you to try this week, separated out by level. So there'll be 5 pieces for beginners, 5 for late beginners, and then 5 for intermediate folks. Now these pieces will be easier than your regular pieces that you play in your regular repertoire, but that's because we're working by sight. I'll play each piece for you so you can have a nice reference. Now you can sight read it with me in the video, or you can download the music in PDF form and do it on your own. And I'll probably end up saying this in every single lesson because it's so important. Being a fast sight reader means that you've become a very good guesser at what probably will come next. Reading music at a faster tempo by sight means that we don't have the time to solidly confirm everything that we're seeing and processing. So our brain uses what little information we can confirm quickly and makes educated guesses from there. So that means the more music that we learn and play, the better guesser we'll be. Okay, in today's lesson, I want to talk about clumping and what your eyes look at when you sight read. Now, clumping is when you look at larger sections in your score at a time to get the full picture, not just one single note at a time. For example, if you're sight reading a piece like Chopin's Prelude in A major, where it's very chordal and vertical, I don't look at one note at a time in the chord. I see the whole chord as one, process, then quickly move on to the next chord. So I'm always one step ahead of where I'm actually playing. I will say that I usually pay the most attention to the outer notes of the chord, so the top and the bottom. And because I can recognize intervals instantly, and we'll talk about this in a later lesson, I can always piece together the remaining notes of that chord very quickly. If you're sight reading more horizontal pieces like Bach, I'd clump all notes going in the same direction so that my mind always has a reference point to work from. Depending on the piece, it might make more sense to actually clump notes together that make up a broken chord. And the chord is your reference point, and you'll quickly be able to see when notes stray away from that chord. I also tend to clump rhythmic groups together, but we're going to talk about that in a later lesson. So that's one thing I want you to focus on this week as you do your exercises. And you can also think about this when you practice your regular repertoire. See how you can clump groups of notes together, either vertically or horizontally, and then just give it a try. Experiment with it and see what works for you. Even if it's difficult at first or it doesn't really seem to be helping, keep working with that concept this week, and I know it will eventually change the way you read your music. You just have to give yourself a little bit of time to get used to it. The second thing I want to talk to you about is your eye gaze, which is very closely related to clumping. So what exactly are you looking at when you sight read? Okay, so when I teach one-on-one, especially adult students, I'll be looking at the student's body and face. And I notice sometimes they kind of get this deer in the headlight look as they read music, and they're just staring. I can tell that their eyes are not moving around at all, as if like staring extra hard and long at the notes will make it process quickly in here. But that is not the case. When I sight read and read music, my eyes never linger for long on one spot. I wish I had laser eyes so I could show you exactly where my eyes go and how often they move about. So I might start in a clump here, then quickly peek at the left-hand notes, then jump to the next large clump of notes before quickly glancing at my current spot again, and then moving back and forth. Experiment with that this week, and if you find yourself staring and zooming in closer and closer, take a breath, take a step back, and try to see the bigger picture, the clumps, and let your eyes flit about a bit. So clumping and eye gaze, those are the two things I want you to work on this week. The following section contains the actual sight reading pieces, and if you've been learning the piano for 6 months to a year, I'd say first start with the beginner section. If you've been playing for a year or two, try the late beginner. And if you've been playing for more than 2 years, start with the intermediate exercises. It's going to vary, and some of you might be more naturally inclined to be a good sight reader. So try some in each level and see where your focus should be. Here are my suggested rules as you sight read. Since this is reading and playing something at sight, do not touch the piano until you're ready to give it a try. You can study it for a few minutes, paying special attention to rhythm, beginning hand position, time signature, accidentals or key signature, and even dynamics. And if you want, you can airplay it to try to feel what it might feel like on the keys. And then after you've done that, set an easy tempo, not too fast, and then try to play it through without stopping. And that's the goal. Even if you make a mistake or two, see if you can get right back on the beat. For example, if you get off on beat 2, don't go back and fix it. Stay on the beat and see if you can get right back on, maybe on beat 3 or 4. If this is something you struggle with, I know a lot of people can't help themselves but go back and correct. I definitely recommend doing your sight reading with me in this next video portion, because I'm going to keep you honest. I'm going to keep you on the beat. And if you make a mistake, you know right where to go because I'll be there. Otherwise, you can do it on your own by downloading the PDFs. Now, after you've played it once, technically you're done sight reading it because now you already have some prior experience with the piece. But please do play it through a few more times and even practice it if you want. By doing that, you're letting your mind make more musical associations and you're recognizing patterns that will help you in future sight reading and reading pieces. Okay, so let's sight read. One, two, three, four. 1, 2, 3, 4. One, two, three, four. One, two, three, four. One, two, three, four. One, two, three. One, two, three, and four, and one, two, three, four. 1, 2, 3, 4. One, two, three. One and two. One, two, three, four. One, two, three, four. 1 and 2 and. One, two, three.